Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to open the Sophie and Toffee-Crystal Druzy Elves box. And as always, the first thing we are greeted with is this lovely booklet. And now let me try to get this unpacked, and I can tell you this took me longer than it looks on video because it was just so twisted in the paper. And the first item is this silicone house mold of this tiny house, very cute. Now, secondly, we have this nylon thread, and then we have this crystal pigment dye in sapphire from them, and I love these pigment dyes for resin, they're so beautiful. Our next mold is this like embellishment charm mold with hearts, drops, a cross, star and moon. And then we have our next molds, and these are like molds that you can put in silicone molds or something like that, and they are Druzys, and they're common stars, moon and an oval shape, and they have lots of plastic packaging, unfortunately. Next up we have this silicone cloud mold, which is a stand-up mold. I'm curious to see how this one turns out. And then we have this another inlay perhaps for a mold in Druzy style, and we have these tiny molds. These are like Druzy charms in rectangles and oblong shapes and mysterious shapes, whatever. And lastly we have this Druzy coaster mold, I think, or like bowl mold. And the other items are these metallic leather in gold, and this is a really high and stable leather, it feels like. And our resin this time is Sophie and Toffee 3:1 resin, and I have to say I really like the style of these caps. And last item of this box is this glitter, and this is like blackish with rainbow shifting, and it's so gorgeous. Now to the booklet. If we open it up, we get Sophie and Toffee's social information, and then we get some important tips. Now feel free to pause this video right here and to read them for yourself if you are interested. Maybe they're helpful for your projects. Now on the next pages we see all of the molds that we get in this. So all of the Druzy molds and the cloud mold and stuff, and they say the Druzy silicone thing is an insert, but I'm not too sure how you would use it. Like, do you put resin on top really flat and then put it on top of a coaster mold, or do you put the silicone thing directly into the coaster mold if you have a fitting one? Not too sure about that. Maybe you have to try that another day. And here we see the house after it's poured, and yeah, all of the other stuff we got. And as always on the last page we get the challenge winners, and these are from the fairy garden box, and these are so adorable. And our next box theme is dice, and I already saw they include a big D20 die in the box, so really excited about that. Now to start off the project, I chose to make the big Druzy coaster mold, and I'm just using this pigment powder, which is white to pink color shift. And I'm applying it with a soft brush because I found this would probably be the easiest for this kind of mold. Now, I totally forgot to record my pouring process, but I used some like pinkish reddish dye and yeah, poured it into the coaster. Now for the next thing, I wanted to make a little charm out of UV resin, and I'm using my more opaque pigments that are like really pastel-y, so I use my blue and purple. And I'm going to use this small little mold and making a moon with a droplet. Now these colors are made for UV resin, so there won't be any issues curing them. but normally opaque colors have more trouble curing, so it takes a bit longer sometimes, just so you are aware of that. And I'm just filling in the droplet here and adding a piece of the nylon thread in it. And for the other side, after that's cured, I'm curing it from the bottom, so it's almost cured, and then I'm placing the other side of the droplet on top. Now the droplet is not quite even, but you really can't see that when you join it, like the tip is slightly bent, but it's really not noticeable on the charm. And for the moon, I'm basically doing the same thing, but also adding the thread with the droplet in the first half of the moon, and then placing it so the droplet will dangle. And with the rest of the UV resin, I'm going to try out some of these shapes. I'm really excited to see how shiny they are, or if they're even shiny enough to be considered druzy, you could say. So now after curing, let's look at them, and I have to say they're pretty shiny and rock looking. Although with my choice of color they kind of look more like ice. But I think they turn out really cute, and I can totally see this being used as like a decoration for some other piece I will make or something like that. So yeah, really happy about these molds. Now, as I mentioned in another video before, with these like stand-up molds, I'm always concerned on them deforming and stuff and delaminating, or also mostly about air bubbles in the top since it's bent. So I'm casting a clear shell out of UV resin, and to that shell I'm adding some glitters, and this is like pinkish greenish glitter, and I'm basically just pouring a second shell. And what this does is, on the outside when I unmold it, there will be no air bubbles since the UV resin lays completely flat. And I mixed up exactly 120 grams of this resin as they said in the instructions, and I used the blue pigment dye they provided. And despite me accidentally spilling something over the corner, it actually fit really well into this mold. And after a day of waiting, the resin is completely hardened, or at least hardened enough so I can unmold it. And as you see, this resin is still really soft, but I can just press it flat again on top of my desk. And this color shifting with the glittering effect of the Druzy mold is really gorgeous. And I have to say, this mold is more of like a tray mold than a coaster mold, definitely, but it's super beautiful. For the cloud mold, I had to take my time a little bit to let air in from all sides before I could get it out, but in the end the mold didn't rip and the cloud came out really beautiful. And you can see how the glitter looks against the blue background. I am so happy I poured a clear shell. Anyways, that were actually all of the projects for today's video. Now, the actual project they suggested us was to make a kind of scenery with the Druzy coaster on the bottom and the stairway or ladder leading into the cloud heaven, and like having the charms dangling from the cloud, and having a tiny house sit on the coaster or tray or whatever. Now, I'm not quite a fan of this kind of standing pieces. I think they just use up too much space in height and stuff, and I'm always worried that I'm going to break something off it if it's like just supported by a tiny ladder in this case. But nonetheless, all of the molds they included for single projects are also absolutely awesome. The cloud will make a perfect display piece, and I'm actually already using the Druzy coaster tray mold as a tray for my SD cards and keys and stuff, and it works really well for that. Now bottles don't really hold inside of it, so that's a shame, but I guess as a tray it's completely perfectly fine. And I have to say, even though this box was meant to be an Elves box, it totally feels like a pixie box with just random molds and some supplies, although we get the resin and stuff, but it definitely felt like I could choose the project way more than in some of the previous Elves boxes. Don't get me wrong, I really love some of their projects, but I also love the free creativity of their pixie boxes, which is why I also always order them. Anyways, in the comments down below, let me know what was your favorite project or mold of this box, and what would you use the Druzy coaster tray mold for? If you would pour it, would you use it to store stuff, or would you also make like a sculpture type thing like they suggested? I hope you're having a great day. Bye!